Do you think orchestral templates are outdated in 2021? In this video, I'm going to talk about why it's so important to build an orchestral template in Logic Pro and how you can keep it organized for the future. Hey everyone, my name is Robert Rodriguez and I'm a media composer. If you're new here, I want to invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. My goal is to help brand new composers feel confident in their own music writing process. So if you've seen some of my other Logic Pro template building videos, I actually go over some tips on how to build your own template, some options that you can take, and more recently, I've actually rethought how I want to build my own template. And I know a lot of composers out there actually don't even work off of a template anymore. The idea of a template seems kind of dated. It was when people had multiple computers hosting tons and tons of sample libraries. Now, I think what a lot of composers do is kind of load as you go. I've tried writing that way and I just don't like it. So I think there are three major benefits to building a template that even in 2021 still hold up. Benefit number one, you're saving time not loading in every single instrument. If you set it up correctly, opening up your template will not really cost you any RAM, and you'll only use the RAM that you actually need when you're playing in your music. This is my updated template. I'll walk you through it real quick. Before I do that, these are just some extra instrument tracks that are empty. There's contact, but I'm not loading anything. Typically, let's check out Albion Solstice. Let's go to the callers, brass and wind, and maybe the main techniques, and check out what happens when I load it up. I get this little progress bar, and now it's loading, memory, all the way up to 270 megabytes. That progress bar right then and there wasn't really, it didn't take too long. It was nothing to worry about. 270 megabytes isn't much to worry about. I have 20 gigs available on my 32 gig Mac. I want you to know that typically when I'm not recording a video, this template still leaves me with about 25 gigs of wiggle room. The remaining 7 that are used up is system RAM and a little bit of Logic just being Logic, contact being contact, but really 7 gigs is mostly just system RAM. So I just wanted to share that I'm not using too much right now. And 270 megabytes out of, that's about a quarter of a gig, right? But think about every single time you load in another track, right? You have to go through that progress bar and then load up the memory. So now it's using almost 400 megabytes. Then I load up another one. That was a quick progress bar, but now I'm at over 400 megabytes. Motors. That was a quick progress bar, but brought me to 267 megabytes. And those were just 4 plugins. Imagine doing that for winds, for flute, piccolo, clarinet, oboe, bassoon, contrabassoon. Imagine doing that for brass. So you have your horns, you have your horn ensembles, your trumpets, trumpet ensembles, you have trombones, tuba, you have your percussion, you have your harps and your pianos, your guitars, choirs, strings, violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, bass, different articulations for each. Maybe you have full ensembles. Maybe you are doing a bunch of synthesizers. The point I'm trying to get at is that you are quickly gonna run out of that 20 gigs of free space. I know that I have a bit more wiggle room when it comes to the memory that I can use. I have about 20 gigs right now that I can still work with after everything is all set up. I know a lot of you might only be working with an 8 gig memory or a 16 gig memory computer. The point is, you can still get a solid and relatively large template even with that amount of RAM. So to combat this problem, imagine that progress bar loading up for every single instrument that you load. It's honestly taken me about 5 minutes to load up every single instrument that I use in my template. But that was before I learned how to actually set it up properly. If I were to get rid of all of these and maybe go to something that is already preset, I went through the process of purging all of the samples Let's stick with main techniques, maybe effects. So it's loading because I'm adding in something new. But if I were to show you, I have my strings. This is an ensemble. And I have my, what was this, octet. I go here. Everything is offloaded right now. So it's not using any memory whatsoever, right? Nothing here. So out of my 32 gigs, technically, this should not be using anything. I'm going to say yes. Remember, this is just a random instrument that I opened up here, but so let me move that off to the side. So this is my Elders Classic Contact Multi. It's going to have my main techniques, my effects, my evos, and my motors all preset and not using any RAM. And I've done that, and I've taken the time now to do that for my solo instruments, my violin ensembles, whether it's from Spitfire or East West. I've done that with my choirs and my guitars. I've done it with everything. And currently, I'm working on synths now, but that's why the template's not finished yet. So that's benefit number one. You're going to save so much time not loading in instruments, and you're going to save so much RAM because it's all pre-purged. So benefit number two of building a template in 2021 is going to be the environment that it creates, especially if you're working on a film, television, or game project. So by environment, I'm really talking about the sonic space that you are using when it comes to writing your own music. Let's say you set up EQ and reverbs and different mic positions in your instruments, and you have this sound of a violin playing, and it really fits the sonic space of the project you're working on. If you don't have a template, you have to recreate that sound every single time. You have to recreate the proper EQ settings. You have to recreate the reverb that it's in. With a template preset, you can write a cue and then write another cue and write another cue. And you're really working within one set of instruments. You're not starting a new project every single time. And that's just another reason why I don't think templates have been outdated. I think they're extremely useful when working on bigger projects. And then benefit three of having a template in 2021 is that routing is always going to be taken care of. So this isn't a complete template yet. I am still working on getting the instruments that I want, presetting everything beforehand. So I don't have anything necessarily routed the way I would. When I say routing, I'm talking about the different stems. Maybe I want a string group, a brass group, different groupings of audio tracks. Because it's not fully set up yet, I'll only show you what I do have, but I want to drill in the point that organization is key, and organization is the foundation of routing. So let's start off with the wins. Right now, I set up a general folder track. I do this by Shift-Command-D. So I'm going to right-click and just show you that it's already created, but you can flatten the stack if I want. I'll just show you what it looks like on this normal instrument track. Shift-Command-D, and you have the option of a folder stack and a basic track stack that lets you mute, solo, and control volume from the main track. Select this option to organize tracks. And then the other option is your summing stack, a multi-purpose track stack that mixes its subtracks and can be saved as a patch. This type can also record and playback MIDI or remote control recording on audio-only subtracks. Select this option to both organize and submix. And in this template, I'm using both. So this one track right here is just a folder track, so there's not really much I can do other than control volume, but I'll open it up, and the way I have this set up is by instruments. So flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and then maybe ensemble instruments. This flute track is yet another folder track, and this now has all of the different types of flutes that I have from different developers, Cinesamples or East West. So this is going to be a summing stack or that summing track. So this is gonna let me mix a little bit. So this summing stack is created by these 4 different instruments. We have piccolo solo legato from Cinesamples. We have piccolo articulations. We have flute solo legato and flute articulations. And you can even see it's offloaded. So right now when I load it up, it's as if the track is turned off, because it is. But remember, even though it was offloaded, I still have it purged. So it's not using any memory. So these are all just steps you can take to save on your memory. And so piccolo true legato, and these are all custom because I edited them myself, is gonna match with piccolo solo legato. Piccolo articulations will match with piccolo articulations. And if you've seen one of my other template building videos, I discuss the benefits of MIDI tracks versus aux tracks. You'll see this is all aux track. And so if we were to look at the mixer, this is one instrument track, and I added these other 3 aux tracks because they're all basically coming from this one instance of contact here. So it's known as contact 3 and 4, contact 5 and 6, contact 7 and 8. That is just one instrument, one piccolo flute instrument from Cinesamples. Then I did the same thing. This is a summing stack. I can adjust the volume or the panning or whatever I need. If I need to add some audio effects or EQ, this one track lets me affect the remaining instruments within that folder. So this is Opus. It's not loaded, so I'm gonna say yes, open that up, and then I'm gonna go to the player, and it has preset my piccolo articulations, my flute, my alto flute, and my bass. And everything is just preset the way I need. And then you can go to your East-West ensemble. And so even though this is just one instrument track, I still believe that organization is key. So technically, it didn't need to be in a folder, but I want everything to fall within its appropriate folder. So I'm going to close the flutes, and then you can go and do the same thing with oboes. You have your Cinesamples oboes and your East-West oboe or English horn. I then have clarinets, so Cinesamples, East-West, and clarinet ensemble. My bassoons, Cinesamples, East-West, or bassoon ensemble. And then my wind ensemble is Albion 1 high woodwinds, so legato and articulations, Albion 1 low woodwinds, legato and articulations, and then my more recent purchase of Albion Solstice Mystics is going to be the main techniques of like the different pipes that they have. And those all fall within wind ensemble. So I'll close up the winds track, and then I have brass. The brass is divided into horns, and I have Cinesample horn solo, East-West horn solo, Cinesample 2 horn ensemble, East-West 2 horn ensemble, Cinesample 6 horn, East-West 6 horn, Cinesample 12, and that is the track. And of course, different instruments within that folder. I'll close up the horns folder, go to trumpets, and the same thing, trumpet solo from 2 different developers, trumpet ensembles from 2 different developers, close that up, and then I have low brass. I have a trombone solo, trombone ensemble, tuba solo, an East-West low brass folder, and all of that falls within low brass. So I will close up my brass overall folder. Percussion is going to be divided into drums, tuned percussion, cymbals, metals, woods, and kits, and the different developers for each. And kits, I added some Albion Solstice and some drum kits from the Spitfire Audio Labs. Then I have Epic Percussion. Albion 1 has Darwin Percussion, and then ensemble loops like Action Strikes. So for harps, I didn't put them in an overarching folder like this. Because I only have 2 harps, I just kept them as Cinesample harps and East-West harps. My pianos are divided into Cinesamples Cinepiano. I have Cinematic Studio Piano. I have the Spitfire Audio Olafur Arnold's Felt Grand Piano, and then the Spitfire Audio Jangle Box Piano. So the next folder that I have is the kind of miscellaneous folder. This is going to include any instruments that might not fall within winds or brass or strings or anything, but kind of stand on their own. So this is something that I can keep adding to down the line as my sample libraries grow. So right now I have a kalimba in there, the Albion Solstice Blackguards, which is like the band, the Labs Dulcimer amplified piano, and right now I am still going through and kind of adding in more to this folder. The next folder is the guitars. So this will have this is the Native Instruments Electric Sunburst Deluxe. I have a ample acoustic guitar and electric bass. I have the Contemporary Drama Toolkit from Spitfire, the guitars from there. I also went and added the Generator Trio from Albion Solstice, which is electric guitars, and the Gut Circle is acoustic guitars. And then, of course, I have a few different ones from Spitfire Labs, like the Moon, Tarango, Mandolin, Peel. And then as we go through, we have choirs. So my main choir library is the East-West Hollywood choirs. So this will be men's choir, which includes the vowels as well as a word builder. And then the women's choir will have the vowels as well as word builder. And then I have the Albion Solstice host, and just a very typical kind of Labs choir long for kind of just basic harmonic choir sounds. And then the strings folder is probably the largest folder and most intricate folder that I have in my template. So it's divided by solo instruments: violin 1, 2, viola, cello, and bass. And this is the Spitfire Audio solo violin. This is the Cinesamples solo violin, and I actually released a video on some Cinesamples products. They're running a 50% off July sale, so depending on when you see this, you might be able to catch that sale. Then I have the East-West solo violin 1, so I have a few different developers there. I then have solo violin 2, then solo viola, and this is really just from the Cinesamples library. Solo cello will be East-West, Cinesamples, and Spitfire, and solo bass, and that is Cinesamples, but also Albion Solstice. So those are all solos, and then I go into the ensembles. So violin 1, I have the East-West Hollywood violin 18 from the new Opus library. Then I have the Spitfire Audio Studio Professional Violin 1s, which is a 16 ensemble. And then the regular East-West Hollywood violins, which is another 16 ensemble. And violin 2 just has East-West as 14 ensemble, and Studio Violin 2s is 12. The viola is Spitfire Studio Viola 12 and East-West Viola 10. I also want to point out that each ensemble is going to be divided into divisi. So if this is a 12 ensemble, there is also Viola 6A and 6B, or with East-West, they have 10, so divisi A, 5, or divisi B, another 5. That's viola. So the celli, we have Studio Celli 12 ensemble, Hollywood Orchestra Celli 10, and once again, divisi. And then basses. Basses, we have East-West 7 basses, and those can be divisi. Studio basses are 4. And then there is the Spitfire Audio Olafur Arnold's Chamber Evolutions. The basses are a set of 3. So those are specifically basses. And then we have string ensembles. I have it as a full set of strings, Spitfire Audio Albion 1. So that's kind of just like your highs, your mids, and your lows. And then I have the Spitfire Audio Olafur Arnold's Chamber Evolutions. So I have a set of the Chamber Evolutions waves and the Chamber Evolutions grid, and then I just duplicated that just to give myself a little bit more leeway. And then there is the Albion Elders. This is the classic strings, which is an octet. And then you have your Elders traditional strings, which is just a sextet. And so those are all of my string ensembles. And mind you, everything is still like a folder within a folder. This is all organized, so I know exactly what I'm looking for and where to find it. And those are all of my strings. And now what I'm currently working on is synths. So the way I like to work with synths is right now I'm working on some rhythmic loops. So in Albion 1, they have their Brunel loops. Since there's way too many presets to go with, I have an instrument that is based on the CHX Brunel presets, and I can cycle through all of those presets as needed. And then another instrument is the Extreme Warp Brunel presets, and then another is Organic Brunel loops, loops X, mutations, and more warped. And so these all fall under the Albion 1 Brunel loops. And all of that would fall under rhythmic loops. And then another folder in synths might be specific to a bass line or a bass kind of synth, and then maybe a lead synth, and then something like ambience or kind of a drone. So these would all fall under different folders. So if I need something specifically, I can go to the appropriate location. So that's my template so far for 2021. It is definitely a massive project that I've been working on, and it's not really close to done yet. I want to finish up some synths. I really want to focus on routing so that each instrument can be its own audio track. So I convert it from MIDI to audio. And then those audio tracks can then go to different groups, and those groups get recorded into stems, and then eventually I'll have a mix file. But what's nice about these summing stacks is that I can actually use those tracks individually to start helping me mix, place EQ, or place the instrument with some reverb. So if you're wondering if a template is still useful in 2021, then I am 100% for it. It saves you time, it creates a sonic space, and your routing is always done for you. So if you're interested in building your own orchestral template in Logic Pro, or you just want some general music tips, check out some of my other videos here. And as always, happy composing.